In this video, we're going to be covering Chapter 8, Challenge Question 8.4, which is find the factors of a number. Problem statement is write a script that asks the user to input a positive integer and then prints out factors of that number. So first thing I'll do is I'll close my window over here to give us more space. So the first thing we want to do is to grab the input for you from the user. So to do that, we use the input function and we pass a parameter of the prompt. So in this case, enter a positive integer. All right, now we need to store their value somehow. So we want to assign the return result of this function to a variable. So we can just call it, anything we want. Let's say user input equals. Okay, we'll hit run to make sure that works. All right, so now we need to print out the factors of that number. So the factor of a number is, or the factors of a number are all the numbers that divide evenly into that number. So let's, for instance, go with the number 6. The factors of 6 are every number between 1 and 6 inclusively that divide evenly into 6. So for instance, 6 divided by 1 is going to be 6 with 0 remainder, right? So if the remainder is 0, that means it divides evenly. All right. Now if we did 6 divided by 2, that goes in 3 times with a remainder of 0. So 2 is also a factor. Do the same thing for 3. 6 divided by 3. That goes in twice with a remainder of 0. So 1, 2, and 3 so far are all factors of 6. Now let's get to 4. So 6 divided by 4. We're going to get 1 with a remainder of 2. So that gives us a remainder of 2. That means 4 is not a factor of 6. Okay? The same thing is going to happen for 5. 6 divided by 5 is going to be 1 with a remainder of 1. So 5 is also not a factor. All right, and then the last number is 6. 6 divided by 6 is going to be 1 with a remainder of 0. So that means 6 is also a factor. All right. So we need to loop through from 1 up to the number. So in this case, if they entered 6, it'd be 6. If they entered 10, it'd be 10, and so on. And we need to check to see if the remainder of the user's input divided by the current number is 0. And if so, that number is a factor. So we're going to loop. We're going to loop from 1 to the number of the input. So we're going to start with 4. And the syntax for 4 is the keyword 4, followed by a variable to store the iterator in. So in this case, we'll just say n. Let's call it number, actually, or number in range. And you can see that the function definition says that it's a sequence of integers from start inclusive to stop exclusive. That means it's going to include the first number in the range, but it's not going to include the second number in the range. So in this case, we want to start with 1 because we don't want to check 0. In the stop, we actually want to do number plus 1 because if we just did number, then it'd be 6. The last number we get to is 6, but it's exclusive, which means the last number will actually be 5 instead of 6. And then we use our colon, and that's our for statement. Everything that we want to iterate inside of this loop, we've put indented. So now we want to check to see if the user's input divided by the current number is 0. So you'll recall from previous chapters that we use the modulus operator. So what the modulus operator does is if we say 6 modulus 4, or 4, and the modulus operator is just a percent sign, what it's going to do is it's going to divide the two numbers and give us the remainder. So in this case, the modulus is 2. If we do 6 modulus 5, we're going to get 1 because that's the remainder. If we do 6 modulus 3, well, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and there's 0 remainder. So the modulus operator is going to give us 0. So we want to check to see if the user's input divided by the current number is going to give us a remainder of 0, and that'll tell us if it's a factor. So we do if That's the keyword. Inside our parentheses, we do the conditional statement. User input modulus number equals 0, right? And then everything we want to do inside the conditional, we put colon here and indent. We want to print, and we'll use our string interpolation. So F, and then in quotes, we'll say number is a factor of user input. Now, in this case, you see I've got an error here. The little squiggly line will tell me that undefined name number. So what I did was I used number instead of the actual user input. So theoretically, this should work. It'll loop from 1 to whatever the user inputs. Check to see if the remainder of the user input divided by the number is 0, and then print that as a factor. There is an error here, and it's the same error we've seen in multiple other videos. I'll give you a second to see if you can figure out what it is and how we'll resolve it. I'm going to hit run, and let's go ahead and put 6 in. Okay, it's a type error. Only can concatenate string, not int to string. So type error means that we have something here we're treating as one type when it's actually a different type. In this case, it's on line 8, and it thinks we're trying to concatenate strings. In this case, this user input is actually a string because what the input function returns is a string. To resolve that, there's a number of ways we can resolve it. We can cast it to an integer in here on line 8 and also again on line 9. Or we can do it once. And so here we've got on line 6 the input. Whatever the user returns for that input, we're going to cast it as an integer. Let's go ahead and hit run. I'll put 6. Okay, so we see 1, 2, 3, and 6 are factors of 6. Let's run that again with a different number. All right, and so far we're getting the correct numbers. So if you have any questions about this problem or anything else in the chapter, feel free to email me or start a discussion in Canvas. Thanks.